So we have Steve Stenerson joining us now. Steve, we were talking about this before. This has to be such a almost kind of surreal time for you, knowing how long you have been in this position with USA Lacrosse. Describe some of the emotions you're going throughout this time, knowing things of your time there are winding down.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, thanks for having me on. And let me say what a pleasure it's been to work with you guys over the years, despite the fact this is probably my last appearance. But I really appreciate the opportunity and the role LSN has played in the game for a number of years. And to your point, yeah, there's a range of emotions. I got out of Carolina in 82, and in 84, I started with one of the 8 organizations that formed USA Lacrosse, the Lacrosse Foundation at the time. And since age 24, I've been part of the ride, and been very fortunate to be part of the leadership of the Lacrosse Foundation, certainly part of the leadership of the formation of USA Lacrosse, and the last 23 years or so of leading USA Lacrosse has been, the opportunity of a lifetime. So it's excitement for the next chapter for me. It's it's a little bit of sadness, a little bit of loss in terms of the decades I've been involved, but all good stuff for both me and the organization.
You described kind of really what has been a transformation of this game, and you have been right there watching this all happen. How do you describe the difference in where this sport was when you first got into this coming out of college to where this sport is now, especially when you talk about the national organization governing this sport?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Certainly the game's come a long way since 1984. I would say this, I think it's still highly fragmented. There are a lot of special interest in the sport now, which in some ways are holding the game back. But clearly in terms of, the scale of play, national participation has more than tripled since those days. And the engagement in the sport nationally and now internationally has risen exponentially. We've got internationally, obviously, full recognition from the International Olympic Committee, which is a major milestone in the sport's history and a step towards what we hope is an eventual inclusion in the Olympic Games. But lots of incredible growth and development, and with that growth come growing pains. And whether it's in terms of trying to standardize still how the game is played nationally, standardized rules, standardized player segmentation, all the way to access and equitable access and culture. I mean, these are major issues that face the sport like never before. And Mark Riccio, my successor, understands these issues and challenges moving forward that are solutions for which are critical to scale the game even further.
Especially since you've taken over when USA Lacrosse was formed in helping lead this organization. What are you most proud of?
Well, I'm most proud of being part of the leadership of creating the organization in the first place. I mean, that was a multi-year slog of trying to gain support from the stakeholders of the 8 organizations that merged to form US Lacrosse in '98. That was a major undertaking, as you can imagine. Organizations decades old, essentially agreeing to sunset themselves in pursuit of a larger vision for the game, and that vision was simply to unify structure and resources to advance the game. The sport wasn't achieving the level of success that it could when so many different organizations at the national level were working independently. So I think that's the big one. I think since then, there have been a lot. Look, this organization and the sport itself continues to be a work in progress, trying to navigate the challenges of growing and expanding the game under the right conditions, under the right circumstances. And as I said, doing so in a way that increases access and provides a culture that's welcoming to all. I think we've leaned into that as an organization in recent years, but we missed the boat in prior years. And I think I'm proud of that pivot that the organization's taken in recent years to really lean into the issues of accessibility and culture. Much more work to do in that regard. I'm certainly proud of the growth of the game internationally, and as you probably know, I will continue to serve in an elected position with World Lacrosse, the sport's international governing body, as vice president of that board. And, I've been involved in some controversial stuff in the past few years in that regard. Creation of a new discipline, the Sixes discipline, working now on kind of the proposals to really reimagine World Lacrosse's international competition platform. But there's a lot of little things all in there, which I'm proud. I guess maybe I'm most proud of the people with whom I've had the chance to work, both on staff. There have been literally hundreds of people over the last 23 years and certainly more over the last 37 years that have really been every single person with whom I've had the opportunity to work as a staff member has played a role in the building blocks of this organization. Every volunteer who served in a board or committee or subcommittee role, every donor, every member who has written us a check for $30 for their child, or if they're a coach or official or a supporter for 50, 55. I'm proud of the role that each of those individuals, hundreds of thousands, have played in the growth and development of the game. But I'll go back to I'm just honored and proud of the staff members with whom I've had the opportunity to work.
You mentioned a number of different things that continue to be issues that USA Lacrosse is trying to fight in order to move the game forward, whether it's the possible Olympic inclusion and getting everybody on board with that discipline, the inclusivity and getting more people an opportunity to just feel lacrosse and feel what this game is like. In your view, what is the biggest roadblock moving forward in something that could really drastically change that Mark will come in and take over and really have to try to tackle?
That's a great question. Mark and I have had a number of conversations about this. I mean, I do think the universal acceptance of lacrosse as a sport for all among all stakeholders in the game is a big obstacle. I mean, I think so many people are focused on their own stuff, their own economic model, that we don't have enough collective focus on the broader strategic kind of core issues that are facing the game in terms of scale. Everybody's fighting, so many people, I guess, are fighting over market share for their respective interests in the game. And I think the biggest challenge moving forward is to continue to build and strengthen coalitions among all constituencies to really address some of these issues head on and collectively. There's no doubt about it. There's passive resistance to some of this progress, and some of it's intentional. People just don't want to focus their time and attention on the big challenging issues. It's easier to just focus on their own knitting and their own respective roles within the sport. But I think continuing to build a culture of selflessness, and there's tons of selflessness in the sport now, but there needs to be much more, particularly among those who are so influential in the game. And so I think that's the biggest challenge Mark faces, is continue to build and strengthen coalitions of strong advocates within the game representing each constituency on these kind of meaty core issues that are critical to scaling participation.
So best case scenario, like utopian view of 10, 15, 20 years down the road, where would you like to see the sport?
Well, certainly, by 2028, we'd like to see a version of the sport in the Olympic Games. There's no larger opportunity for the sport worldwide in terms of marketing and exposure than the Olympic Games, and that's not going to change anytime soon. More than half the world's population engages in the Olympic Games, and so part of our goal here is to grow the game internationally. I say that with my World Lacrosse hat on, and with USA Lacrosse as certainly a supportive stakeholder and member of World Lacrosse. So I think that would be incredible. I'd really like to see a resurgence of community and town play. Youth sport generally and lacrosse specifically has evolved into a club model, and the belief among many is that if my child or my family doesn't invest in a club experience, which often is costly, that they might as well not try the game. And unfortunately, that club experience is out of the reach of most American families. So we've got to find a way, and it's not just a lacrosse issue, it's a youth sports issue. We've got to find a way to provide more kids, more families with accessible lacrosse experience. That's critical. And I think we also have to, and this is a big area of focus for Mark, is look, everything requires investment, financial and human resources to really to push forward and advance. And USA Lacrosse is no different. You know, we're a non-profit organization that generates our resources from members and donors and sponsors. And so Mark is going to be charged with continuing to try to scale the revenue for this nonprofit organization so that we can invest so much more in some of these media issues.
Well, Steve, we appreciate your time throughout all these years. We have really appreciated this partnership. And for me, selfishly, I've appreciated the opportunity to do games involving USA Lacrosse. Just like for the players, anytime you get to see people in that red, white, and blue and you're part of the broadcast, it's something special. So we appreciate this partnership. Good luck as you you move on to your next ventures, and thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Grateful. Take care.